Well, amidst the public outcry over the unusually poor performance of students at the 2025 post-UTME examination, well, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, Jamb, has come out to give excuses and explanations as to that particular outcome. Well, aside the fact that the Jamb has actually, allowed for the receipt of the examination by over 300,000 students, they've also come out to say that there's a lot of malpractice in this year's Jamb examination, citing Lagos and Anambra states as the two states that are highest in malpractice activities. Well, Jamb failure in Lagos and Southeast, is it an error or by design? A topic of discussion, and we have Dr. Stanislaus Ukeje, an economist and a policy scholar. He is live in the studio to answer some of these questions and unpack this particular data. Good morning, Doctor, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Great, great. The issue with Jamb is no news. There's been a public outcry as to why there's massive failure this year. And in response, Jamb actually gave a press conference and said it's because of malpractice, and they cited Lagos and Anambra states as the two states that are most affected with malpractice activities. Now the question is, by what standards and how do they come about that inference? I mean, how trustworthy is their method of data collection and drawing this particular inference? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting really that Jamb admits to malpractice. In decision making, one elementary tool is what is called tree diagram or a flow chart. For instance, if you are, like you have invited me to your station.
Yes.
Maybe you make a call and you say, "Are you Dr. Ukeje?" I say, "Yes." "Please, will you be available on Saturday morning by..." One of the things that will follow, if I say I will not be available, you may say, "If you will not be available, can you come on?" That's how a flow chart flows. You begin. There are if statements.
It's a stepwise process.
Good. If, then.
If, yes.
And continue.
Yes.
That's a very simple way of looking at a computation system. Now, what I understand is that if we are 8 candidates sitting on this table, we will have the same questions but not in the same order.
Yes.
Because there are multiple choices, the multiple choice will not also be in the same order. In other words, if I circle A and you see me and circle A,
it might not be the same answer too.
Because what is A in my own may be D in your own. So how come there could be malpractice in that kind of system without the server
emanating from their end?
Good. Secondly, I think 2 years ago there was a question about one Mesoma from the same Anambra state, and this girl had been consistently brilliant in her school performance. Whatever the claim was, I didn't expect the registrar of Jamb to respond to a young girl. There must be a Jamb office in Anambra State where the coordinator or head of office can deal with the matter. But he brought the whole weight of his office on the girl. And I don't think there is a law that empowers Jamb to exclude or include people in taking exam or in getting admission. But he went further to prohibit the girl from taking Jamb or not getting admission to Nigerian University for 3 years. The same thing that the girl complained about is what has come out now in multiples. So was Mesoma involved? So it's a systemic thing. systemic in the sense that Nigeria is a new nation, a new country. You'll find that people follow their townsmen or their ethnic members or their church members to public organizations. Let's say you have National Electoral Commission or Independent National Electoral Commission. You make me the chairman. Of course, people who know me will tell me that God has blessed us. So, please, my son, my daughter, get her employment. If I have the political clout, in other words, if I'm related to the appointing official, I could do it in excess. Now, when my tenure finishes and I leave, many of those people who came under me may also leave, because if I move from INEC to NCC, many of them will transfer their service, and that's what happens in many establishments at the federal level. The federal character principle was put in place to checkmate these things. Unfortunately, the regulator, the people who are supposed to implement the law, are affected by the same disease. They themselves cannot checkmate themselves, and therefore they cannot checkmate others. If you look at reports that have been coming out, almost everybody holding top offices in Jamb come from Oloyode's cultural area. And many of them, some of them who are even consultants, who are university teachers, were appointed by him. You know, they were not full-time, but because he knew them. How can somebody become a national officer without a national orientation? In other words, you've never visited the southeast, you've never visited the northeast, you've never lived in the northwest, you've never worked in the north central. Now you are given a national assignment and you become parochial. It's not the person's fault, because the people recruiting should have looked for somebody with a national outlook. Yeah, that's what I mean. So it is systemic.
All right, Doctor, you did mention that Nigeria is a new state, and as such, we are still dabbling with issues that, as if we are still in our infancy, we have not really matured up to a level where we bring out, what's the word now, policies or things to do, and they are foolproof. What am I trying to say? At first, Jamb came out to give a press release to say that the reason for the massive failure was because of malpractice. And I guess it was put to them that if it's malpractice, it's computer-based, it should emanate from your end. Then they came forward to say, okay, it was a glitch in the system. And I am not an IT expert, but I do know that before you bring packages, new initiatives, there should be some kind of pilots. Was it that Jamb did not take this new CBT revolution through a pilot stage to ensure that any glitch, unforeseen glitch, is mitigated, and they just brought it out there and students failed massively? Do you think it's something that shouldn't be prosecuted, or we should just let it slide?
I think we should go beyond technicalities. I'm sure that the West African Education Council, for instance, they have been administering exams for high school leavers for a long time.
20 years.
At the end of each exam, there are scores, and the results are provided. They don't release it without looking at it. Jamb has not said that at the end of the scoring that they looked at the results. Because if they looked at the results, that pattern would have been seen.
Obvious.
And they will say, we are withholding results from X number of states because we identified a unique performance. The registrar didn't say that, which means he didn't do elementary job. Because you convene a meeting to look at the results. Secondly, I know that Jamb operates what they call mock exam before the main exam.
Yes.
Good. If they operated a mock exam, did the mock exam
reveal
reveal this tendency?
I doubt it did.
You follow? Yeah. I think there is one Alex Onya who is involved in education management as a private enterprise. I think he calls himself head of Educare. He was one of those invited by Jamb to interrogate what happened. From the account he gave, he said, as the exam was going on, there were 17 cycles of examination that showed evidence of non-functionality of the system. At that stage, they should have stopped. But they tried to cover it up. That's a second administrative failure. And then a third and more serious administrative failure is concentration of personnel. If you were my daughter and you are working in my office, if there is something that happened in our family, maybe I had a disagreement with your younger sister, he didn't wash a plate and I flogged her, in the office, that bad blood will affect the job. If you are in charge of records, I won't call you. If I call you, you will not answer. If other relations of ours are in the same office, incidents in our family will take priority over the work. I think in statistics, they call it, when you have data and you scatter it, you call it a scatter diagram. The link should be a graph linking it. And if it's a straight line, it means something is wrong. This concentration of people from the same nationality, because Nigeria is not a nation, in what is called a national organization, can remove their attention to job. Why don't you, I mean, you know that there are people who are Calabari in Nigeria, there are people who are Ogoni, there are people who are TV. Why don't you want to work with people from diverse areas? If you don't want, stay in your own corner. So it is these three administrative problems that have led to this massive failure.
So, Doctor, you insist that the root cause of this is systemic failure in administration stemming from ethnicity issues rather than from technical issues. Is that what you're saying, Paul? Is it, if we solve the ethnicity and administrative issues,
yes,
the technical issues will be solved?
If people were distributed, you know, you have people of different characters.
Yes.
Let us assume that you have person A from Ogoni. He will come with Ogoni behavior. Person B from Ishan. He will come with Ishan behavior. If there is a problem in Ogoni, the Ogoni man may be worried about what is happening in his hometown, but it will not disturb the Ishan man. The work will still be done. But if there is a problem with one person in a concentrated, their personal problem will take priority. Don't forget that these people who are involved in this exercise are the people who are in charge of procurement. If they are looking for a vendor who will sell them software, they will look for people they know. They won't advertise it. And if they begin to procure things from people they know, people connected to them, then things can go wrong, because the things that you will subject to examination are not subjected to examination. But if it was open, let us say I am the person in charge, and the vendor who is selected according to no rules is Ibrahim. If I'm aggrieved that Ibrahim got it instead of Okoro, I will subject it to critical examination. But if it is Okoro that got it through my influence, I will not want to subject it to, because if I find something wrong, I would have defeated myself. You get what I'm saying? That is not technical, it's administrative. The purpose of organization, missions, is called mission atrophy. When a system forgets its mission and begins to do things that are not missionary, unfortunately is a problem in Nigeria.
I think it's endemic.
It's endemic. I mean, you can see some churches. If you follow what has been happening in Rome, tomorrow, the new Pope is going to be inaugurated. Not inaugurated, he's already Pope. But because Vatican is a state, the Pope is the head of the Vatican state. So he's going to hold a mass tomorrow and he's inviting heads of states, United Nations, AU, to come to meet him formally. At his election, somebody who is about 33-year-old in the priesthood from Aguata, the cardinal there, attended. There was no exclusion. Everybody participated. And you can see how he's been examined. That as a young boy, he was a mass server. And a woman living in his street in Chicago said, this boy will be the first American Pope, according to his elder brother, because he was exhibiting piety. Then he joined a missionary group, the Augustinian order. He was not interested in being a diocesan priest, maybe helping his brother to be baptized, or he went to Peru, stayed there, came back to Chicago, was head of their order. Then he was made head of the order globally. And in the invitation he sent to the Nigerian president, he said, please, I want you to come because I have served in the Lagos Archdiocese. The Catholic Church in Lagos Archdiocese has a university in Ekpe. They call it St. Augustine's University. Perhaps he helped them. The senior seminary, the Catholic Senior Seminary in Jos, is owned by the Augustinian Order, St. Augustine's Seminary. So he has a broad view. Yes. He knows people across board.
It underscores the importance of having a large or a broad world view.
No, but if you bring somebody from a rural area to an urban area, he will be exhibiting rural behavior. People need to be obeying, wide, able to reach out to different segments of this. You should know the society you are even operating in.
Yeah. All right, Doctor, you have actually said a lot as to the administrative, issues that we have in Nigeria, not just with the Jamb issue, but it cuts across, like we earlier mentioned, it's endemic. Now, but some people are calling for Jamb to either be decentralized or scrapped. You think that's the way to go? What do you think?
Indeed, that should be the proper reaction of both the governments and people who are knowledgeable. I went to university before Jamb was set up. Those who entered under Jamb, the first set, the students were mocking them as Jambinos. They came through Jamb. But many people who are now in university did not know or do not know that there was a time when there was no Jamb. How did the Jamb come about? The University of Nigeria, Nsukka, was owned by the old Eastern region. After the war, the Southeastern states and the East Central states agreed to jointly run the university. River State said they don't want to be part of it. A campus was set up in Calabar that eventually became the University of Calabar. The University of Benin was owned by the Midwest State. The University of Ife was owned by the Western region. What is called Ahmadu Bello University was originally University of Zaria. It was the violent killing of Ahmadu Bello, who was premier when it was founded, that made them to change the name of the university to Ahmadu Bello University in his honor. By 1978, the federal government set up new universities. University of Jos was a campus of the University of Ibadan. What is called Bayero University was a college of education run by the Ahmadu Bello University. University of Port Harcourt was an affiliate of the University of Lagos. So 6 new universities were set up, and the federal government, using a military decree, took over all these universities as federal universities. All of them became federal universities. he set up Jamb to, in their view, save parents and students the trouble of applying to several universities, taking and in the course of doing that, very brilliant students may be offered admission in many universities, while second best students are denied, because eventually the students will take only one offer. So they set up Jamb. Now, during the Second Republic, Anambra State under Jim Wobodo set up Anambra State University of Science and Technology and brought back Professor Dike.
Asutek.
Yes, who was the first vice chancellor of the University of Ibadan from the US to run it, and he was named president of the university. Brilliant academics have been there, Professor Onwu Mechile, others, Ejike. Other states started setting up their own private university. In other words, that setting up of Asutek was a defiance of the federal monopoly. Of course, Father Ede and the Igbenedio also set up private universities and polytechnics. Now, what is the purpose of Jamb? From being a one-man's custodian, it becomes everybody's custodian. It simply cannot even work, because I find that the use of computer-based tests for examination will be missing out a lot of things in learning. When I was in primary school, we had script copybook, how you learned how to write. Now, if everybody is typing on a system, I'm sure anybody can go to a Jamb exam as a gambler, assuming that you are not interested in getting admission, but you can go to the test. Just pray and be choosing. You can come out with 400 just by gambling. Make sure you answer all the questions.
You know, there was a teacher that went in for this Jamb examination. He has been taking students on Jamb, tutoring them. And then he tried to just try the system out himself. He went in. His score wasn't high. That was when he actually said, it seems as though students are not given what they actually earn. It seems as though there's a permutation that gives, a lot, scores to students.
You have used the correct word, permutation. There's another aspect of it called combination. So what Jamb is doing is permutation and combination. They take the same text, the same set of questions, and they permute it. But in how many ways can you permute maybe 100 questions to be different among 1 million people? It's not possible. So you may find some that ally. Sometimes in one center, sometimes in, candidate neighbors. And the people who operate the software can influence that. So, because if you go back to the Mesoma issue, what Loyode accused the girl of, the father and the girl initially said it was not possible for this girl of age 19 without knowledge of software management to manipulate Jamb. Innocent even printed her result before offering her scholarship. But she was intimidated. Now, Mesoma is not involved, and Oloyede is weeping.
He is weeping.
And he didn't say exactly what happened. If he said, I failed by not looking at the result before publishing it, that is one question. If you involved people to supply you with software to manage the systems, and they failed you, you say, I am wrong because I took this person who is my uncle to come and supply this, and he failed me. You can't just say that I take responsibility for what?
All right, Doctor, can you unpack this submission by Jamb that the mass failure was largely from Lagos and Anambra State in the southeast? Can you try to unpack it? By what standards, by what indications, or rather indicators would Jamb say that the highest malpractice activities occurred in Lagos and in Anambra State? as a scientist?
The whole thing goes back to the relevance of Jamb as an examining body for a diverse set of university owners. I hope you are aware that the senior seminary at Uwane, owned by the Catholic Church, is a university because they offer philosophy, they offer theology. Nigerian Defense Academy now is a university.
NDA, yes.
The Police Academy in Wudil in Kano is a university. There's a Nigerian Army University in Burutai. Is a university.
Do you call it a university or a tertiary institution?
Well, this is the Nigerian situation. When General Burutai was chief of army staff, he used army money to set up an army university. In other words, there's a defense academy for training soldiers. And because the academy has been upgraded to award degrees, they now offer degrees. Now he set up an army university. His colleague in the Air Force set up an Air Force university in Bauchi. I don't think this man who is administrator of River State, I don't think he had the courage to set up a naval university in Cross River or Akwa Ibom. These are universities. What role is Jamb playing in all these places? So the more you have a complexity of ownership, the less Jamb can be effective. So I think we are not a socialist country or communist country. Why are you having one body? And we are a federation. The US is a federation. India is a federation. Yeah. So why should you be having one regulatory body for diverse number of people? You know, it's just...
So you're saying that what happened to the West African Examination Council, WAEC, in the sense that it was eventually decentralized. Now we have NICO. I think we have the one for Islamic something like that. So I think the same thing should be done to Jamb, where Jamb is decentralized. But if it's going to be decentralized, along what lines? Along ethnic lines or religious lines? What are your thoughts?
Let me begin from WAEC. The West African Examination Council was set up by the British colonial authorities to cover education in Nigeria, education testing, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Gambia, because they were their colonies. Before then, Cambridge University was doing the tests. Why are we, holding ourselves down? Because the purpose of education is learning. Testing is a different thing. That you have credit in English from WAEC. I'm sure if you take it to the United States, it doesn't seem to mean anything to them. If you take it to the UK, it doesn't mean anything. They have to test you to be sure that you can follow lectures.
Yes.
Harvard University admit a lot of Nigerians, politicians, to their programs. Those people don't have WAEC, many of them don't have WAEC, but they bring them there, they say, oh, Harvard program on this. They take it and they give the certificate, take pictures. We should, I think the initiative should come from lower levels.
To people?
Yes. People can form an education body to test people and certify them. If you go and fail yourself, then the body that certified you will fail. But we now have a system in which we have a potpourri. It doesn't make sense.
All right, I wish I had you here longer, Dr. Ukeje, but incidentally, we have come to the end of our segment. Thank you so much for your perspective and insight. It's always a joy speaking with you.
Signature TV, news in your pocket.